Good morning. My name is AJ. I'm going to be presenting about the company that I'm sure many of you know, Apple. Majority of the population knows what Apple is, knows how and what products they make. They're a tech company that creates a variety of products ranging from phones and watches to TV products and computers. They're constantly making new things and it is some top quality stuff. But what really goes on the inside of the company? What do people not know about Apple? Today, I'll be discussing three elements of this company: their employee involvement, motivation tactics, as well as pros and cons of working for this company. So the first major point is employee involvement. Apple is the perhaps the greatest, most visible example of a fully engaged company. The man who said this was William Ng, and he was in an Apple store when they announced the passing of Steve Jobs. Why is that so special? Well, he got to take part in a company tradition, and so did many other customers that were in the store. All the employees and customers held an applause for respect of news that they had just heard. In his essay, Steve Jobs' Legacy: 360-Degree Engagement, he wrote about this exact experience inside an Apple store when they announced their founder and CEO passed away. We have tradition of clapping out Apple employees when they leave the store at the end of shifts, the manager said. We have been informed that Steve Jobs just passed away, and we would like you all to join us as we clap him out. So, they clapped him out. Moving on, and speaking about the company itself, William points out four lessons from Apple. They are build a culture of fandom, emphasize employee retention, create great customer experiences, and as well to focus on these projects over silos. The first lesson is that Apple wants their employees, customers, and partners engaged. For the employees, this seems pretty easy, as they are given good discounts as well as gifts from the company, which are usually various Apple products, which makes sense since they're working for a pretty great company, Apple. The second is giving employees the Apple attitude. And what this is like being positive, having great like customer assistance and whatnot. Whether they like to work at the company for a long time or not, they hope to have a lasting impact on all their employees. Lesson number 3 is pretty self-explanatory. Create great customer experiences. And they want to give them the highest quality buying experience. Finally, the last one is a bit different. At Apple, they don't want to work in individual groups, but Jobs thought up so that employees would move between departments, divisions, as well as jobs. His thought was focus on specific products and the roles of the departments will fall into place. In my opinion, at first glance, it seems like having every single person disengaged in the company would be a good idea and a good way to have the company run, and so that people wouldn't get bored and that they would like come to work each day with a new thought of working. Thinking back to Jobs' fourth point, where employees move between departments and divisions, it seems like it has potential to get very confusing and unorganized. Other than that, it seems like the employees and customers are engaged with the company in a pretty good way. The second point to be discussed is the motivation tactics. This company always wants to make sure that they pick up the right people for the job, and they want to make sure when a new employee starts working that they are enjoying their experience and have a passion for the work that they do. Of course, no slacking is allowed, but that shouldn't be a problem if they're always hiring the right employees. Aside from hiring the right employees, they have the right motivation. According to applecorbett.weebly.com, Apple are able to motivate their employees to not only do their job effectively and efficiently, but they also make sure that the employees enjoy doing it. The first type of motivation they use is called intrinsic motivation, or kind of internal. Think like introverted. And what this is basically a system that says an employee will do a task because they found enjoyment in it, and they also felt pleased when they completed it. Extrinsic, on the other hand, has actual physical rewards. These might include money, gifts, or recognition, but at Apple, these gifts range from an iPod Shuffle to an iPhone, as well as product discounts in some cases, which seems like pretty good motivation, considering these products are pretty expensive. In Steve Toback's article from FoxBusiness.com, he talks about a variety of ways to be a good manager or good ways to motivate employees. Starts with talking about how if you want to be a good leader, then you should play the part that people look up to and act like a strong, confident leader, kind of like a hero, like a superhero. The next point is pretty straightforward one, being that you should hire people that have similarities with you. Obviously not exactly the same, but some differences are always good. It's good to have a little bit of variety, and you want people that will want to do the work they're doing. So if you can connect with them on a personal level, that makes it even better. Another one of Toback's points is to be the manager that there's always that is always there for your employees. You're able to point them in the right direction as well as be there for feedback and guidance. And lastly, you should have that leadership presence. Make it so that your employees know their purpose and that you have a healthy ego, but don't be cocky. So moving on to the final point that applies to 99% of things, pros and cons. Working at Apple can be pretty challenging and stressful, just like any job. But for many positions, the salary is good. Do the pros outweigh the cons? We shall see. Besides having a high starting salary, it seems like Apple has a lot of other positives. According to Meyer Kassoff at BusinessInsider.com, many Apple employees seem to think the pros outweigh the cons. And then she goes on to explain 19 of the best things about working for Apple. 19 is a pretty big list. Four really stood out more than all the others. A pretty big one that would likely keep employees in high spirits is the company actually throws these large parties, and I mean, almost sounds like a college party. One example of this from her article says that they throw beer bash, which is free beer and appetizers every few weeks. On some occasions, they have big music artists can make an appearance at these things as well. At one earlier this year, One Republic was there. That's pretty cool. Another huge thing that I'm sure is much bigger deal in the lower 48 than it is here in Alaska is Apple makes the daily commute easier for its employees. There's a shuttle service they offer, and they also help pay a fixed amount for those that travel by bus, train, or whatever else they use towards their campus in Cupertino. Also, the current CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, is an excellent leader, and he's well respected by his employees. And that might be biased, but obviously having a pretty good leader is pretty important. But something that seems like a huge positive is that when you get a job at Apple, you'll learn enormous amounts of things in a good way. Like at any other job, you will learn, but at Apple, they'll like teach you and they can educate you. It's like it feels like an education. They educate you about code. You can learn to critical think more strong, and obviously you learn more about this specific field that you're working in at Apple. There's even a training center on campus called Apple University that can teach new employees about the history of Apple, its ideals, and their designs. Those are just a few of the many cool things about working at Apple. Well, there's also bad news. Just as everything, there's negatives. In Jim Edwards' article at BusinessInsider.com, he spoke with previous Apple employees, and they spilled the beans on the low points of life at the top. At Apple, they don't like the public knowing about pretty much anything before it's ready to be announced. So it's like top secret. You spill the beans, you're in big trouble. So any kind of leaked information is a pretty big no-no. You can't even tell your family anything. Hi, honey, I'm home from work. How's your day? What'd you do? Can't tell you what I did. It's a secret. So that's a little awkward. It's definitely not the norm for many jobs. Something else that is a big negative is that only the marketing teams make decisions for this enormous company. So much power is held by just a few people. Another negative is that some employees are almost physically separated from others. Some of the offices are unpleasant and like huge and just separated from the others. So you can have a whole work day where you don't see anybody else and you're just working in your office alone. But that can be like also kind of a positive since you get like just work done and that's all you're doing is just working. Um, for some people, to enjoy their time at Apple or not, it's entirely dependent on which department they work on. So, all in all, I still think Apple's a desirable business to work for. They're pretty engaged with strong leadership, and they have positives that seem to outweigh these negatives. Apple has been around for a while now with constant improving technology, and hopefully they continue to make superior products. And there's my reference page. And thank you. Wait, was I not recording? No fucking way. No, I am.